Epilogue. Thus end the merry adventures of Robin Hood, for in spite of his promise, it was many a year ere he saw Sherwood again. After a year or two at court, Little John came back to Nottinghamshire, where he lived in an orderly way through within sight of Sherwood, and where he achieved great fame as the champion of all England with the quarterstaff. Will Scarlet, after a time, came back to his own home, where he had been driven by his unlucky killing of his father's steward. The rest of the band did their duty as royal rangers right well, but Robin Hood and Alan Dale did not come again to Sherwood so quickly, for thus is. Robin, though his great fame as an archer, became a favourite with the king, so that he speedily rose in rank to be the chief of all the yeomen. At last the king, seeing how faithful and how loyal he was, created him Earl of Huntingdon. So Robin followed the king to the wars, and found his time so full that he had no chance to come back to Sherwood for even so much as a day. As for Alan a Dale and his wife, the fair Ellen, they followed Robin Hood and shared in all his ups and downs of life. And now, dear friend, you who have journeyed with me in all these merry doings, I will not bid you follow me further, but will drop your hand here with a good den, if you wish it, for that which cometh hereafter speaketh of the breaking up of things, and shows how joys and pleasure that are dead and gone can never be set up on their feet to walk again. I will not dwell upon the matter overlong, but will tell as speedily as may be of how that stout fellow Robin Hood died as he had lived, not at court as Earl of Huntingdon, but with bow in hand, his heart in the greenwoods, and he himself a right yeoman. King Richard died upon the battlefield in such a way as properly became a Lionheart king, as you yourself no doubt know. So after a time the Earl of Huntingdon, or Robin Hood, was, as we still call him as of old, finding nothing for his doings abroad, came back to merry England again. With him came Alan a Dale and his wife, the fair Ellen, for those two had been chief of Robin's household ever since he had left the Sherwood forest. It was in the springtime when they landed once more on the shore of England. The leaves were green, and the birds sang blithely, just as they used to do in the fair Sherwood when Robin Hood roamed the woodlands shades with a free heart and a light heel. All the sweetness of the time and the joyousness of everything brought back to Robin's mind the forest life, so that a great longing came upon him to behold the woodlands once more. So he went straightway to King John and besought leave of him to visit Nottingham for a short season. The king gave him leave to come and to go, but bade him to not stay longer than 3 days at Sherwood. So Robin Hood and Alan a Dale set forth without delay to Nottinghamshire and Sherwood Forest. The first night they took up their inn at Nottingham town, yet they did not go to play their duty to the sheriff, for his worship bore many a bitter girdle against Robin Hood, which girdles had not been lessened by Robin's rise in the world. The next day at an early hour they mounted their horses and set forth for the woodlands. As they passed along the road, it seemed to Robin that he knew every stick and stone that his eyes looked upon. Yonder was a path that he had oftentimes trod of a mellow evening with Little John beside him. Here was one, now right crooked with brambles, along which he and little band had walked when they went forth to seek a certain curtal friar. Thus they rode slowly onwards, talking about these old, familiar things, old and yet new, for they found more in them than they had ever thought of before. Thus at least they came to the open glare, and the border wide-spreading greenwood tree, which was their home for so many years. Neither of them two spoke when they stood beneath the tree. Robin looked all about him at the well-known things, so like what they used to be, and yet so different. For where once was the bustle of many busy fellows was now the quietness of solitude, and so as he looked, the woodlands, the greenwood, and the sky blurred together in his sight through salt tears, for such a great yawning came upon him as he looked on these things, as well known to him as the fingers of his right hand, that he could not keep back the water from his eyes. That morning he had slung his good old budgel horn over his shoulder, and now with the yawning came a great longing to sound the budgel horn once more. He raised it to his lips, he blew a blast. Chillila, rillila, the sweet, clear sound went winding down the forest paths, coming back again from the more distant bosky shades in faint echoes and sounds. Chillila, lililala, trillila, lilala, until it faded away and was lost. Now it chanced that that very morning Little John was walking through a spur of the forest upon certain matters of business, and as he paced along, sunk in meditation, the faint clear notes of a distant budgel horn came to his ears. As leaped the stag when it feels the arrow at his heart, so leaped Little John when the distant sound met his ear. All the blood in his body seemed to rush like a flame into his cheeks as he bent his head and listened. Again came the budgel note, thin and clear, and yet again it sounded. Then Little John gave a great, wild cry of yearning, of joy and yet of grief, and putting down his head he dashed into the thicket. Onwards he plunged, crackling and rending as the wild boar rushes through the underbush. Little record of the horns and briars that scattered his flesh and torn his clothing, for all he thought of was to get by the shortest way to the greenwood glare, whence came the sound of the budgel horn came. Out the bushes from the cover, at least, a shower of little broken twigs fallen about him, and without pausing a moment, rushed forward and flung himself at Robin's feet. Then he clapped his arms around the master's knees, and all his body was shaken with great sobs. Neither could Robin nor Eleanor Dale speak, but stood looking down at Little John, the tears rolling down his cheeks. While they stood thus, 7 loyal royal rangers rushed into the open glare and raised a great shout of joy at the sight of Robin, and at their heels with Will Studley. Then after a while came 4 more, panting with their running, and 2 of these 4 were Will Scatterlock and Mitchell the miller, for all of these had heard the sound of Robin's horn. All these ran to Robin and kissed his hands and his clothing with great sound of weeping. After a while, Robin looked around him with tear-dimmed eyes and said in a husky voice, "Now I swear that never again I will leave these dear woodlands. I have been away from them and from you too long. Now do I lay by the name of Robert, Earl of Huntingdon, and take up on me once again the noble title Robin Hood the Yeoman." At these great shout went up, and all the yeomen shook one another's hands for joy. The news that Robin Hood had come back once again to dwell in the Sherwoods, as of old, spread like wildfire all over the countryside, so that ere A sea night had passed, nearly all of the old yeomen had gathered all about him. But when the news of all this reached the ears of King John, he swore both loud and deep, and took a solemn vow that he would not rest until he had Robin Hood in his power, dead or alive. Now there was present at court a certain knight, Sir William Dale, as gallant a soldier as ever donned harness. Sir William Dale was well acquainted with Sherwood Forest, for he had had keeper over the parts of it that lay nigh to good Mansfield town. So to him the king turned and bade him take an army of men and go straightway to seek Robin Hood. Likewise the king gave Sir William his signet ring to show to the sheriff, that he might raise all his armed men to aid the other in their chase of Robin. So Sir William and the sheriff set forward to do the king's bidding, and to search for Robin Hood, and for the 7 days they hunted up and down, yet found him not.